Hello L5R people, my name is James aka Osan. For this video, this is going to be posted right after PAX South, so I'm going to be talking about my PAX South journey. I am going to be playing Crane Scorpion. I got to this deck because I was looking at several different clans, and this is kind of what I landed on because of how much fun I have playing it. Dragon Crab, it's a really strong deck. I feel it's definitely one of the decks that will just beat you. Same thing with Lion. Based off its flips, you don't really have to make hard plays with the deck, but they weren't kind of what I was looking for. The amount of play I like in games, the chance to outplay your opponent and kind of maneuver them. And so that's why I chose Crane Scorpion. I'm going to be renouncing my most recent Scorpion Hatamoto title, similar to how I renounced my Dragon Hatamoto title, and going into this with some confidence. I don't think this is a tier 1 deck. I think it's a 1.5, maybe tier 2 deck, but I really do enjoy it. I'm going with a Scorpion Splash because I like the cancel. I like a Fate Worse Than Death. I think that card will just blow opponents out. It has a Q combo with the Kikita Yoshi. I'm running the Imperial Palace to kind of maintain that favor control, to make sure that people's censures are kind of dead against me. I want my opponent to have lots of cancel in their hand. I want them to have lots of actions in their hand, and I want Guest of Honor to laugh at that. And when they cloud Guest of Honor, I want them to run at my Frostbitten Crossing, and I want to use my Frostbitten Crossing on my Guest of Honor and cloud and remove that cloud. And I think that's going to happen at least twice at PAX South minimum. And this deck is a lot of fun. I think that this can be built out many different ways with maybe 5 or 6 card variation on each side. This is kind of where I'm at right now. It's going to change, even though as I'm recording this video, or this part of the video, this is Wednesday, the week of PAX South. I'm flying out Friday night. I'm not going to be landing until 11 p.m. in San Antonio. And what I'm going to be doing is going to be taking this deck completely apart. I'm going to unsleeve it, put the cards back in the box, and I'm going to be rebuilding it from scratch. I usually do that before a tournament because it makes me feel good about the deck. Any kind of hesitant choices or 50-50 choices I had are brought up again at that point, and I have to make a decision there. And what it does for me, once I finally identify all those deck decisions and put that deck back together, I get excited. I want to test the deck, I want to play it, and I get really excited about the Kote. One thing I don't do though, and I think some people have asked me this, is I don't play games with my tournament deck the day of, or very rarely the night before. I might play one, and I hate doing it, but usually it's a friend asking me to play a game, and you know, they really need some testing, so I'll try to help them out. But I have it's a weird superstition. So there aren't really too many weird things about this deck, I feel. I think it's pretty standard to some of the stuff you might have seen maybe on the Crane Clan forum, maybe on 5 Rings. And you know, as I said, it's probably going to change, you know, maybe tomorrow and maybe the day after. Let's go to PAX South, guys. Oh my gosh. Okay. Hey guys, it's James. This is after PAX South. I literally just landed maybe an hour and a half ago. Wanted to put my thoughts on to YouTube for you guys, get this video up as fast as possible. As I know you guys are probably interested in kind of how PAX was, what I was doing. I hope you guys enjoyed the little montage I put before this. I try to take more photos and more videos, but I was just always playing, and if I wasn't playing, I was like, let's go eat, you know. So First of all, congratulations to Christopher Pottorff. He was playing an amazing Scorpion deck that just threw everyone for a loop. We did touch on it in our J-Throne podcast before the tournament, but I don't think that just looking at the list you can figure out how to play it correctly. You do a lot of passing, a lot of not declaring conflicts for maybe the first or second turn, and it really throws opponents off if you have never played against it. It's a great deck. I don't know if it's going to be as strong going forward, maybe, because people are going to kind of figure out what it's going to try to do, but it's definitely the top deck in 1-Pack South. Congratulations to him. It's a very unique win, I feel. And like I said, we're going to talk more about it on the J-Throne podcast. Just big shout out to him. Congratulations. Also, congratulations to Shay, who also got Lion Hatamoto. He's the host of the J-Throne podcast. And I know that going in, he kind of had he was just going to be happy to go 500. And so it was just great seeing him get that Hatamoto title. That meant a lot. And Johnny Shen got his second Hatamoto title. He's also on the J-Throne podcast every once in a while, and he got it with Scorpion, so congrats to him. Oh, yeah, and as you guys know, I got Crane Hatamoto. It's my third Hatamoto title. And that was actually, I did much better than my expectations. I got knocked out in top 4 against a Phoenix player. My deck just came out weird. I ended up drawing 16 cards at one point in my hand. I had 16 cards in my hand. I couldn't play a single one of them, and it was just I'm not gonna take anything away from the Phoenix player who beat me, because he played a great game, made no mistakes that I could take advantage of, and he definitely capitalized on the situations that I got myself stuck into, and I ended up assassinating to lose the game, because I was just going to lose it anyway. There was no way for me to stop it. So just to get into the deck a little bit, because I think this is going to be a little bit different than what you've kind of seen. Well, the Dynasty deck is probably standard to what you're used to in Crane. I'm all in on Yoshi. I'm running 3 Miya Satoshi, who was just phenomenal, but I did have him discard on average probably about 8 to 10 cards every time I used him from my Dynasty deck. So I don't know. It worked out. I never had to reshuffle my Dynasty deck. Now, the Conflict, I feel this is where it's unique, and I think a lot of people were surprised as they didn't see the list. Unfortunately, in top 8, people got to see my list, so I felt that it lost a little bit of impact. And that impact is the fact that I'm running a lot of 1-ofs, a lot of 2-ofs. And something I learned from Case Kiyonaga, who's probably the best Elf-Ivar player I've ever played. When you run a 1-of on a card, if your opponent does not know you run a 1-of a card, they're going to assume you probably run 2 or 3 of that card. A lot of people have the mentality that if you run 3 of a card, or if a card is good enough to run, you run 3 of it, right? But I wanted a deck that had situational cards that weren't probably always good, but they would just blow your opponent out in certain situations, and they would just not expect it. And maybe if the game keeps going, they're going to be playing around that card for the rest of the game. Some examples of that was the Mono Nowari. I played it on one opponent, and he would not put 1 Fate on people anymore. He actually had maybe, I think, 1 or 2 turns where he either bought all his guys with no Fate, or he bought guys with 2 Fate, depending on what I was doing in my Dynasty phase. And so it kind of mind gamed him a little bit there. And that's what I did with the 1-ofs. And the reason why I did that in this deck, and I probably won't ever do in other Elf-Ivar decks, is this deck has lots and lots of card draw. Its test of skill is amazing. I think, Dare posted a great deck list where he was using test of skill, 3 perfect gifts, and he was running display power. And I decided to go with the Scorpion Splash, and as you guys saw earlier, I went with Fate Worse Than Death and Calling in Favors instead of the Imperial Edict, which I had before. I know Dare was trying to talk me out of a Scorpion Splash, but it's what I know, and also the Fate Worse Than Death is one of my favorite cards. I think Dragon Splash for this deck would be very similar, as, Miyamoto's Fury can bow a guy, Fate Worse Than Death removes a guy, right? Calling Favor steals an attachment, Let Go discards an attachment. So it's a very similar build, and I think that's something that people, should kind of notice, is that I am running a card that can be used defensively that costs 3 fate more than Miyamoto's Fury to blank someone, remove a fate, and dishonor them, right? And then I'm also running Calling in Favors, which costs 1 instead of Let Go costing 0, but it steals the attachment. And so let me kind of just touch on that real quick. A Fate Worse Than Death does several things. It blanks a text box. It removes a fate. Dishonors the guy. Bows him and sends him home. Now, Miyamoto's Fury costs 1, right? And it just will bow based off promises. So there could be times where you don't get to play it. Fate Worse Than Death, there's going to be times where you can't have the fate to play it. But you're getting 5 effects, right? And so, there'll be times you will, bow someone with Fury. They'll, against the waves, ready for battle, Gaijin Customs to stand that guy. Or maybe, they'll be able to straighten him with water, or he has like a really good blanket ability effect that just straightens himself. Fate Worse Than Death blanks the dude, removes the fate, dishonors him, sends him home, bows him. If you told me that there were cards that did each one of these effects, for maybe 0 or 1 fate, and they were each individual card, or maybe if you combine 2 of the effects into 1 card for like 1 fate, then I would think that those cards would be considered really good and really strong. And so it has a high fate cost, but the idea is that you kind of want to always do it with Yoshi, but that does not always happen. And so what you have to do in the Dynasty phase is kind of be stingy on turns where your opponent went and bought that superhero. They bought that superhero, they're probably going to pass next. Maybe, hopefully, I'm first player, so I bought like a little dude, and then I'm just going to straight pass. And what that'll do usually is I'll have the fate to take care of that superhero that they invested so heavily on, and get that return on value. So that's kind of how you have to try to play Fate Worse Than Death. I think it's a superb card. I think it's really strong. But like I said, you could take this exact same deck list, bring over Dragon, and it would probably perform just as well. I think it's really dependent on the meta, what kind of decks you think you're going to see. And yeah, I thought I was going to see a lot of Phoenix. So, Fury I don't think would have been as good in a heavy Phoenix environment. Of course, I got knocked out by Phoenix in top 4. So, maybe that doesn't make sense to everyone based off what I'm saying, or I don't have any credit to back that up. But I think a Fate Worse Than Death is better against Phoenix than it is versus than Miyamoto's Fury is. Now, let's talk about Calling in Favors. You have to dishonor a dude, pay 1 fate to steal an attachment, whereas a Let Go is 0 fate and discards attachment from play. Some people complain, and they have the same complaint with Imperial Edict, where you're dishonoring one of your dudes, and so they're going to become smaller. And a lot of Crane dudes do have 2 glory, right? But we also have 1 cost glory guys. And if you're just trying to steal an attachment, you can just throw it on a 1 cost guy, or you run 3-way the Crane, you run 3-sided Politician, you just put it on Honor Dude. You might take a 2-point hit, but maybe you're stealing something that has a Force or a Chi modifier. And I think Calling in Favors was the MVP, and that is, I have to credit Brad Eamon, because I showed him what I was trying to do, and he said, you should cut Edict. You need to run Calling in Favors. And it just clicked for me at that point. And honestly, Calling in Favors was the MVP of this deck. Fate Worse Than Death probably a very close second, because I had so many blowout plays with Calling in Favors. Crab is a very popular splash. People are going to run J Tetsubo. People are going to run Watch Commanders. People are going to watch Reprieves. When you steal a Reprieve, that feels bad, man. It feels really bad for your opponent that, hey, I had this Honor Doji rep with a Ornate Fan, and you just put that on Kasada, and I steal it, and I put on my Doji rep who was just going to leave play. That is a huge, huge swing in the game state. And so Calling in Favors, phenomenal. I could honestly see going up to 3 Calling in Favors and getting rid of the 1 Fate Worse Than Death. It's just so strong. It kind of makes me want to see how that works in other decks. Now, if the environment shifts away from attachment heavy, or maybe away from kind of like the Crab Splash, obviously that's going to change, but Calling in Favors, amazing. Next thing I kind of want to call, my MVP play with Calling Favors was when I stole a Talisman of the Sun, the unicorn card that when they attack you, you can move them to a different province, and I put it on a Shizue while I had an Imperial Palace in play. So I had my opponent's Talisman of the Sun the entire game, and it was, oh my gosh, it feels bad, man. It feels really bad. Crane has the advantage to be able to draw so many cards. I had a game where I shuffled my conflict deck and I didn't lose. And so I was getting down to maybe like 4 or 5 cards in my conflict deck at the end of every game. There was one game where I had to perfect gift with like 4 cards in my conflict deck to get my last a fate worse than death so I could win the game. And it's you just draw so many cards. It's unbelievable. The only problem is when I was in top 4 against my Phoenix opponent, I had 16 cards in my hand and I couldn't play a single one of them. The reason being, he had KD turn 1 and my Dynasty flip, which is kind of awkward, and he got the Shibio Jimbo at the time when I had the fate for the fate worse than death. He got the covert guy when I didn't have too many people, and it was a very sad game for me because I felt my conflict deck was doing its job, but my Dynasty side just wasn't holding up, which I feel is probably more the strong side of this deck. Yeah, but going into the 1-0s, man, let me tell you, it's a good time. It's fun. It might not be the most optimal, but it's really good. The difference is, I'm only running 1 perfect gift. You'll see lists I run 3, but I just wanted to throw in a Mononowari, which is great against line. It's just good situationally. When your opponent has already like 2 or 3 people in with 1 fate, and then you have a flip where you can just buy some cheap dudes, and they buy another guy, put 1 fate. You're like, okay, I'll just buy this Doji Whisperer, and they go, I'll buy this other guy and put 2 fate on him. Okay, I'll just buy this Cautious Scout with no fate. And then you pass and you wipe their board. And so the 1-of is good. I don't think I would ever go to 2-of in this deck. You would have to kind of change things around on how you play. You'd have to throw in more conflict characters, but Test of Skill, solid. I love that card. Just some slops on this deck real quick is Doji Gift Giver was 100% useless. I had it in the deck because I wanted to have something effective versus Phoenix and Dragon. First of all, it doesn't do anything versus Phoenix because they have Strain card. Second of all, Dragon just I never played a Dragon player in the tournament who had 1 super unit and then my Gift Giver was ever in a correct position. I think if I was really going to go all in with Gift Giver, I'd probably have to go up to 3. But it's probably definitely cuttable. This is definitely a flex spot on this deck. I think I would probably keep everything else the same. No other changes. The 2 Hataros were fine. I mean, I bought Hataro a lot. Resolved Rings twice a lot. Yeah. If you guys have any questions about this deck list, please post in the comments below. I'll reply to them or I'll answer them in my next video. And I hope to post some games for this list in the future, just so you guys can kind of see what it does. Thank you for watching, guys. I'm probably gonna go take a nap because I'm so tired right now. Do some laundry, adult stuff, I guess. Yeah, so stay magical.